The command center's main display flashed red. "Arrest order, active," pulsed across every screen in Naval Base Coronado. Admiral Grant Huxley's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. 20 minutes earlier, he had been laughing at the woman standing in his office. "What's your rank?" he had asked mockingly, when she'd requested a meeting about training deaths. The woman in the plain gray suit had simply replied, "I don't have one, Admiral. I have something better." He'd found that amusing then. Now, watching U.S. Marshals' vehicles line up outside the main gate through his window, the joke wasn't funny anymore. Master Chief Brennan stood at attention beside him, but something was off. The veteran SEAL's hand was moving toward a salute, not directed at the Admiral, but at the woman. "Sir," Brennan's voice carried an edge Huxley had never heard in 15 years. "That's Avery Lane. Her father was Team 6, died in Kandahar." The Admiral's jaw tightened. "I don't care whose daughter she is. She has no authority here." The challenge coin in Avery's hand caught the light, eagle, trident, and anchor gleaming. The room's atmosphere shifted. Every SEAL present recognized that coin. It wasn't just any coin. It was from Operation Neptune's Spear. Her father hadn't just been Team 6. He'd been on the Bin Laden raid. And now his daughter was here with a federal warrant, while outside, the arrest vehicle's engines hummed like predators waiting to strike. The morning had started differently at 0600 hours. Avery Lane stood at the main gate of Naval Base Coronado, her rental car parked precisely 3 feet from the security checkpoint. The Marine Guards examined her federal credentials with the kind of scrutiny reserved for outsiders attempting to enter their domain. She was stunningly beautiful, with Russian features, her fair porcelain skin dotted with natural freckles across her cheeks and nose. Her high, sharp nose bridge gave her face an aristocratic quality, while her long, light brown hair was tied in a messy high bun, with a few loose curls framing her face. Those captivating green eyes held a radiant and regal presence like a princess, though she wore only a fitted light gray t-shirt, slim dark military pants, and brown combat boots. "Federal investigator," the younger guard read aloud, his voice carrying doubt. "Ma'am, you'll need military escort to enter the base." Avery's fingers unconsciously traced the outline of the challenge coin in her pocket. The metal was worn smooth from 20 years of identical movements. Her father's coin. The last thing he'd touched before boarding the helicopter to Abbottabad. She'd been 20 then, watching the news like everyone else, not knowing her father was descending into that compound until the president announced it to the world. "I have an appointment with Admiral Huxley," she said, her voice carrying neither deference nor hostility. Just fact. The older guard, a staff sergeant with deployment ribbons suggesting Iraq and Afghanistan, studied her more carefully. Something in her stillness triggered recognition in men who'd spent years identifying threats and allies in milliseconds. "Ma'am, the Admiral doesn't typically meet with civilian investigators. He will today." She handed over a sealed federal warrant. The staff sergeant's expression changed as he read it. His hand moved reflexively to his sidearm, not in threat, but in the unconscious gesture of someone realizing the Z were standing at the edge of something significant. "Clear her through," he told the younger Marine. Then, quietly enough that only Avery heard, "Good hunting, ma'am." The base sprawled before her like a small city dedicated to creating the world's most elite warriors. Buildings bore numbers instead of names, their purposes hidden behind acronyms that meant nothing to outsiders. Groups of BUDS candidates ran past in formation, their instructors' cadence calls echoing across the humid morning air. The famous grinder where thousands of would-be SEALs had quit during Hell Week lay empty, waiting for the next class to test themselves against their limits. Building 701 housed the administrative offices of Naval Special Warfare Command. Avery parked in visitor parking, noting the 3 black SUVs with government plates already positioned at strategic exits. Her backup was in place, waiting for her signal. She checked her phone one last time. The federal judge's order was clear. Admiral Grant Huxley was to be detained pending investigation into obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, and conspiracy to defraud the United States government through falsified defense contracts. Inside, the building hummed with controlled energy. Naval personnel moved with purpose through corridors decorated with photographs of SEAL operations spanning decades. Vietnam, Grenada, Panama, Iraq, Afghanistan, and dozens of classified missions represented only by date stamps and redacted locations. Avery's father was in 3 of those photos, his face pixelated for security, but she knew his stance, the way he held his rifle, the tilt of his head when focused. The receptionist, a young petty officer second class, looked up from her computer. "Can I help you, ma'am?" "Avery Lane for Admiral Huxley." The petty officer frowned, checking her screen. "I don't have you on the Admiral's calendar." "He'll want to see me." Avery placed a folder on the desk. The cover bore the seal of the Department of Justice. "Tell him it's about the training accidents." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 5 degrees. Every person in uniform within earshot suddenly found reasons to stop what they were doing. Training accidents had killed 3 candidates in the past 6 months. Officially, they were unfortunate but standard risks of the world's most demanding military training. Unofficially, whispers suggested equipment failures that shouldn't have happened. One moment, the petty officer picked up her phone, speaking in low tones. Her face paled as she listened to the response. "The Admiral will see you now. 3rd floor, end of the corridor." Avery took the stairs. Elevators were confined spaces with no exit options. Her father had taught her that when she was 12, the same year, he'd taught her to disassemble and reassemble a Sig Sauer P226 in complete darkness. "Not because I want you to be a soldier," he'd said, "but because the world is full of wolves, and I won't always be here to protect you." He'd been right about that last part. The 3rd floor corridor stretched ahead like a gauntlet. Officers and enlisted personnel lined the walls, pretending to be engaged in conversations while watching her approach. She recognized the tactical positioning, the way they'd unconsciously arranged themselves to provide overlapping fields of fire if she proved to be a threat. These were warriors, trained to neutralize danger before it materialized. Lieutenant Commander Torres stood outside the Admiral's office. Hispanic, mid-30s, with the kind of nervous energy that suggested he knew more than he was comfortable knowing. His hand twitched toward a salute before he caught himself, remembering she was civilian. "Ms. Lane, the Admiral is waiting." He opened the door and to reveal a corner office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Admiral Grant Huxley stood behind his desk like a king holding court. 6 feet 3 inches of lean muscle that 58 years hadn't softened. His dress whites carried enough ribbons to stock a craft store, including the Navy Cross, Silver Star, and 5 bronze stars with Combat V devices. His seal trident, the golden eagle clutching a trident and anchor, caught the morning sun. 3 other men occupied the room. Avery cataloged them instantly. Commander Jake Mitchell, Huxley's executive officer, standing at parade rest by the window. Senior Chief Carlos Rodriguez, senior enlisted advisor, positioned to block the direct path to the Admiral. And Master Chief William Brennan, a legend among SEALs with 30 years of service, who stood slightly apart from the others, his gray eyes measuring her with the patience of a sniper. "Gentlemen," the Admiral's voice carried the authority of someone who'd never had an order questioned, "this is Ms. Lane, our latest civilian investigator, here to question how we train America's finest warriors." He gestured to a chair positioned in the center of the room, surrounded by the standing men, a power play as subtle as a sledgehammer. "Please, have a seat." Avery remained standing. "I prefer to stand, Admiral. I insist." His smile revealed perfect teeth, the result of naval dental care and good genetics. "We wouldn't want you to be uncomfortable. Comfort isn't my priority." She pulled out her phone, setting it to record. 3 men are dead. Their families deserve answers. Commander Mitchell stepped forward. "Those training accidents were thoroughly investigated by Naval Criminal Investigative Service. The reports are available through proper channels. I've read them." Avery opened her folder, spreading photographs across the Admiral's desk. Petty Officer Jason Chen, age 23, drowned during pool competency when his rebreather malfunctioned. Petty Officer Marcus Thompson, 24, crushed when fast rope equipment failed during helicopter training. Seaman David Park, 22, severe head trauma when his parachute failed to deploy properly during jump training. Senior Chief Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Equipment failures happen. This is dangerous training. Not with this equipment." Avery produced a contract document. FlexTech Defense Solutions provided all 3 pieces of equipment. They're owned by a shell company registered in Delaware, which is owned by another company in the Caymans, which traces back to a very interesting investor. The room went still. Master Chief Brennan shifted his weight slightly, a tell that would have been invisible to most observers. Avery caught it. "Admiral," she continued, Your brother-in-law is the CEO of FlexTech. That's public record, Huxley replied smoothly. All contracts go through proper procurement channels. I recuse myself from any decisions involving FlexTech. On paper, Avery pulled out another document. But you had dinner with him 6 times in the month before the contract was awarded. You played golf at Coronado Country Club every Sunday. Your wife owns 12% of FlexTech through a trust you supposedly don't control. Commander Mitchell moved closer, using his size to intimidate. Those are serious accusations. They're facts. Avery didn't step back. Along with the fact that an engineer at FlexTech tried to report substandard materials 3 months ago. Thomas Kramer, 41 years old, married with 2 daughters. He filed a whistleblower complaint that mysteriously disappeared from the system. Systems have glitches, Rodriguez offered, but his voice lacked conviction. Thomas Kramer doesn't. Avery's voice hardened. He disappeared 5 weeks ago. His wife received one text saying he had taken a job overseas. She hasn't heard from him since. The Admiral's expression hadn't changed, but a vein in his temple pulsed visibly. Ms. Lane, if you're suggesting that I had something to do with a civilian's career choices, I'm suggesting nothing. She placed a USB drive on his desk. This contains Thomas Kramer's original complaint, including test data showing FlexTech equipment failing at half the rated specifications. It also contains emails between you and FlexTech's CEO discussing handling the Kramer problem. Master Chief Brennan stepped forward for the first time. Ma'am, how did you obtain these emails? Avery met his gaze steadily. My mother was a federal court clerk. She taught me the importance of documentation. She also taught me that powerful men often forget that their assistants have access to everything. Lieutenant Commander Torres, still standing by the door, had gone pale. His hand moved unconsciously toward his pocket, where the shape of a USB drive was visible. The Admiral followed Avery's glance. Torres, you're dismissed. Sir, I... Dismissed, Lieutenant Commander. Torres hesitated, torn between obedience and conscience. His eyes met Avery's briefly, a silent communication passing between them. Then he saluted and left, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. You're spreading poison through my command, Huxley said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. These men trust each other with their lives. Your investigation undermines that trust. Your actions undermine that trust. Avery pulled out her challenge coin, setting it on the desk with a distinctive metallic ring. My father believed in the Brotherhood. He died believing his teammates would always have his back. But you're not protecting your men, Admiral. You're getting them killed for profit. Brennan's intake of breath was audible. He leaned forward, studying the coin. The serial number was visible, Nisasa 007, the 7th coin issued for Operation Neptune's Spear. Your father was Phoenix, Brennan said quietly. It wasn't a question. The room's atmosphere shifted palpably. Phoenix was a legend even among SEALs, the intelligence specialist who had identified the courier that led to bin Laden, the operator who had breached the 3rd floor and confirmed the target, the ghost who had died 2 years later in an ambush that shouldn't have happened, leading a rescue mission for captured NGO workers. Petty Officer First Class Michael Lane, Avery confirmed. Team 6, Blue Squadron, killed in action, August 12, 2013, Kandahar Province. I knew your father, Brennan said slowly. He was the best intelligence operator I ever worked with. He was also investigating defense contractor fraud when he died. Avery's words landed like grenades. His last message to my mother mentioned concerns about equipment quality. 2 weeks later, his team's radios failed during the ambush. They couldn't call for support. Commander Mitchell's confident posture cracked slightly. That was investigated. The Taliban had jammers. The Taliban had 7-year-old Russian equipment that shouldn't have affected our latest encrypted radios. Avery's voice carried years of researched certainty. Unless those radios were built with substandard components, unless someone knew they'd fail under specific conditions. Admiral Huxley stood slowly, his full height imposing. Ms. Lane, you're suggesting that I'm somehow connected to your father's death? I'm stating that FlexTech has been providing substandard equipment to naval special warfare for 12 years. I'm stating that multiple operators have died due to equipment failures. I'm stating that you've personally profited from these contracts while silencing anyone who tried to expose the truth. She pulled out a second folder, thicker than the first. 17 names, Admiral, 17 operators killed in incidents involving FlexTech equipment. Each death ruled accidental or combat-related. Each family told their loved one died a hero. They did die heroes, Senior Chief Rodriguez interjected, anger creeping into his voice. Yes, Avery agreed, but they didn't have to die at all. The Admiral moved around his desk, closing the distance between them. At this range, she could smell his cologne, expensive and subtle, mixing with the starch of his uniform. What exactly do you want, Ms. Lane? Justice? He laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Justice? You're a civilian investigator with no jurisdiction on a military installation. What you have are theories and circumstantial evidence that wouldn't survive the first motion to dismiss. You're right about one thing. Avery remained motionless as he circled her like a shark. I'm civilian, which means I'm not bound by the uniform code of military justice. I'm not part of your chain of command, and I'm definitely not intimidated by your rank. You should be. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Do you know what happens to civilians who interfere with military operations, who spread classified information, who threaten national security? Is that a threat, Admiral? It's a reality check. He stopped directly in front of her, using his height advantage. You're alone on a military base, surrounded by men who've sworn oaths to defend this country. Your investigation ends here. Avery pulled out her phone, showing a timer counting down. 3 minutes, 47 seconds. Actually, Admiral, my investigation is just beginning. You see, while we've been talking, a federal judge has been reviewing my evidence. The same judge, incidentally, who you threatened 8 years ago when he tried to investigate your first fraudulent contract. Huxley's face darkened. Judge Morrison has no authority here. Federal judges have authority everywhere in the United States. She showed him another screen, a live feed of the base's main gate where black SUVs were now moving through security, including military bases. Master Chief Brennan moved to the window, confirming what the phone showed. Sir, we have federal vehicles entering the base. This is a military matter, Commander Mitchell insisted, his hand moving toward his sidearm. No, Avery corrected. It's a federal crime that happens to involve military personnel. Fraud, conspiracy, and murder across state lines. That makes it FBI jurisdiction. Murder? Rodriguez stepped forward aggressively. You can't prove. Thomas Kramer's body was found yesterday in a warehouse in Tijuana. Avery's announcement silenced the room. He'd been tortured before he died. The Mexican authorities were very cooperative once they learned he was an American citizen who had been kidnapped. The Admiral's composure finally cracked. You have no evidence connecting me to that. Your brother-in-law used his personal credit card at a gas station 2 miles from where Kramer was grabbed. Your former SEAL, Chief Petty Officer Raymond Vance, who now works for Flex Tech Security, was caught on surveillance video at the warehouse. She paused. Vance already made a deal. He's testifying that you gave the order. The timer on her phone reached 0. Simultaneously, every computer screen in the office flashed to red. Arrest order, active, appeared in bold letters, followed by Admiral Huxley's name and photograph. No. Huxley grabbed Avery's wrist, his grip crushing. You don't understand what you're doing. The programs I protect, the operations I oversee, they keep this country safe. His grip had pulled up her sleeve, revealing a tattoo on her forearm, the distinctive lightning bolt and dagger of the Intelligence Support Activity, also known as Task Force Orange. The ultra-classified unit that even most special operators didn't know existed. Master Chief Brennan's reaction was immediate. He snapped to attention, rendering a perfect salute. Ma'am, I apologize. We didn't know. Commander Mitchell looked confused. Chief? What are you... She's not just civilian, Brennan's voice carried awe. She's ISA, Task Force Orange. They're the ones who found Saddam. They located al-Baghdadi. They're the ghosts who prepped the battlefield before DevGru and Delta even know there's a mission. The office door opened. Lieutenant Commander Torres entered, followed by 6 shore patrol officers and 4 U.S. Marshals. Torres had changed something subtle in his bearing. He no longer looked nervous. He looked determined. Admiral Huxley, the lead marshal announced, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud against the United States government, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. Torres, the Admiral's voice was deadly quiet, you're under my command. No, sir. Torres pulled out his own credentials. I've been under Federal Investigation Task Force for 6 months. I've documented every meeting, every communication, every attempt to cover up the equipment failures. The room erupted in motion. Commander Mitchell reached for his weapon, but Master Chief Brennan's hand clamped down on his wrist. "Don't, Commander. It's over." Senior Chief Rodriguez stood frozen, torn between loyalty and law. The shore patrol officers moved in, their faces grim. These were sailors arresting their admiral, a violation of everything they had been taught about chain of command and loyalty. "Stand down, Senior Chief," Brennan ordered. "This is bigger than rank." Avery stepped back, rubbing her wrist where the admiral had grabbed it. Red marks were already forming, but she didn't react to the pain. She had endured worse in ISA training, learning to operate in environments where a woman's presence would be questioned, where her competence would be tested through pain. The marshals cuffed Admiral Huxley with the same restraints used on common criminals. The sound of metal clicking closed echoed through the office like a judge's gavel. His dress whites, so pristine moments before, were now wrinkled from the struggle. "You're destroying decades of work," he said to Avery. "The relationships, the operations, the trust we've built with indigenous forces, it'll all collapse without me. The SEALs existed before you, Admiral. They'll exist after you." She picked up her challenge coin from his desk. "The difference is, they'll exist without operators dying from preventable equipment failures." The door opened again. This time, 40 members of SEAL Team 6 entered in full operational gear. They had been training on the compound's kill house, practicing close-quarters combat when word spread through the tactical net that the Admiral was being arrested. These were the elite of the elite, men who'd conducted operations in every shadow conflict of the past decade. The lead operator, a lieutenant with a Purple Heart ribbon on his combat vest, looked between the arrested Admiral and Avery. "Master Chief, what's the situation?" Brennan straightened. "Lieutenant, Admiral Huxley is under federal arrest for crimes related to the training deaths. Ms. Lane is a federal investigator with full authority." The lieutenant studied Avery carefully, noting the ISA tattoo still visible on her forearm. Recognition dawned in his eyes. "You're Phoenix's daughter." "Yes." The lieutenant did something unprecedented. He removed his helmet, revealing a young face marked by combat experience beyond his years. Then he saluted, not the Admiral, but Avery. One by one, the other SEALs followed suit. 40 of America's most elite warriors saluting a woman in civilian clothes, while their admiral stood in handcuffs. The symbolism was powerful enough to crack the foundations of military hierarchy. "Your father saved my team in Helmand," the lieutenant said. "His intelligence package prevented us from walking into an ambush. We all came home because of him." Other voices joined in. "He identified the HVT in Ramadi, saved dozens of Marines. His work in Somalia kept my squad alive. We called him the Oracle. He saw patterns nobody else could see." Avery's composed mask finally cracked slightly, moisture gathering in her green eyes. These men had known a side of her father she'd never seen, the operator who had lived in the shadows to keep others in the light. Admiral Huxley watched his men's loyalty shift in real time. "You're making a mistake, all of you. When the next operation goes sideways because the equipment I didn't personally vet fails, remember this moment." "The equipment you personally vetted killed 3 good men," Master Chief Brennan replied. "Men who trusted you to give them the best, not the most profitable." The marshals began moving Huxley toward the door. As they passed it, each SEAL stepped aside, creating a corridor of judgment. None met his eyes. In the warrior culture of the SEALs, there was no greater dishonor than betraying your brothers for money. "Wait!" Avery's voice stopped the procession. She approached the Admiral, studying his face with the analytical detachment she'd learned from her mother's legal training and her father's operational planning. "There's something else. Someone else." Huxley's expression flickered for just a moment, but she caught it. The tell of a poker player holding cards he didn't want revealed. "Who else is involved?" she asked quietly, so only he could hear. "FlexTech isn't big enough to run this operation alone. Who's protecting you?" His lips quirked in what might have been admiration. "You're good, Lane. Your father would be proud. But some secrets die with their keepers." "We'll see about that." She nodded to the marshals. "Take him." As they led him out, she heard him muttering about national security, about threats only he understood, about the price of keeping America safe. The self-justification of a man who had lost his moral compass so gradually, he never noticed when north became south. Lieutenant Commander Torres approached her, pulling out the USB drive from his pocket. This contained 6 months of documentation, every meeting, every phone call, every order that violated protocol. "I'm sorry I couldn't act sooner, but I needed enough evidence to ensure conviction." She took the drive, weighing its small mass against the lives it represented. "You did the right thing, Commander." "It doesn't feel like it." He looked around the office where he had served for 2 years, watching corruption spread like cancer through the command. "I betrayed my commanding officer." "No," Master Chief Brennan corrected. "The Admiral betrayed us. You upheld your oath to the Constitution." The SEALs began filing out, but several stopped to shake Avery's hand or offer quiet thanks. Each handshake was firm, respectful, the acknowledgement of warriors recognizing another warrior, regardless of uniform or gender. When the office finally emptied except for Avery, Brennan, and Torres, the Master Chief spoke again. "Ma'am, there's something else you should know. Your father's last mission, the one where he died, Admiral Huxley was the one who insisted on using Flex-Tech radios despite field reports of problems." The weight of that revelation settled over Avery like a burial shroud. Her investigation had been about justice for the recent victims, but now she understood she'd also been seeking answers about her father's death without realizing it. "Did he know?" she asked quietly. "Did my father know about the Admiral's corruption?" Brennan pulled out a worn notebook from his pocket. "He gave me this 2 days before that last mission. Told me if anything happened to make sure it got to the right people. I've been carrying it for 11 years, not knowing who the right people were." She opened the notebook. Her father's precise handwriting filled pages with observations, connections, patterns that painted a picture of systematic corruption. The last entry was dated the day before his death. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it back. The equipment failures aren't accidents. Follow the money. Trust no one above 05. Phoenix." 05 was the naval rank of commander. Admiral Huxley was 09, her father had known. "He was investigating from the inside," Torres added. "I found references in old files. He'd been building a case for 2 years. And they killed him for it." Avery's voice was steady, but her knuckles were white as she gripped the notebook. "We can't prove that," Brennan said gently. "The Taliban did ambush the team." "The Taliban were just the weapon. Huxley aimed it by ensuring the radios would fail." She looked out the window, where the Pacific stretched endlessly. "My mother knew. That's why she kept pushing for investigations until she had her heart attack 5 years ago." The room fell silent. The implications were staggering. A decade-long conspiracy that had killed operators and civilians alike, all for profit margins on defense contracts. Avery's phone buzzed. A text from the U.S. attorney. "Huxley secured. Request your presence for debrief. Additional arrests pending based on your evidence." She turned to the 2 men. "This isn't over. Flex-Tech has contracts with other units. Army Special Forces, Marine Raiders, Air Force Pararescue. How many more have died because of substandard equipment?" "Too many," Torres admitted. "I've identified at least 30 suspicious incidents across all branches. Then we keep going." She pocketed her father's notebook. "Commander Torres, I'm requesting you be assigned to the Joint Task Force. Your inside knowledge is invaluable." "Ma'am, I'm still active duty. I can't just—" "You can if the Secretary of the Navy approves it." She showed him her phone where an email confirmed his temporary assignment to the Department of Justice. "I may not have military rank, Admiral Huxley, but I have something better. I have federal authority and a president who's very interested in why American special operators keep dying from equipment failures." Master Chief Brennan stood at attention. "Ma'am, I request permission to assist the investigation." "Master Chief, you don't need my permission." "With respect, ma'am, I do. You're the mission commander now. This is your operation." The weight of that responsibility settled on her shoulders. She thought of her father, spending years gathering evidence while maintaining his cover. Her mother, filing legal briefs and court documents until her heart gave out from the stress. They'd both died pursuing this truth. "Very well, Master Chief. Consider yourself attached to the task force." She looked around the Admiral's office one last time. Awards, photographs, certificates of achievement covering the walls. The visible record of a decorated career that had rotted from the inside. They left the office together, walking through corridors now filled with sailors and SEALs, trying to process what they'd witnessed. An admiral arrested, the command structure shattered. Everything they'd believed about loyalty and leadership challenged. As they reached the building's exit, Avery saw them, 40 SEALs in formation, standing at attention in the courtyard. The same men who'd saluted her in the office had organized a formal honor guard. As she emerged, the ranking NCO called out, "Present arms!" 40 rifles snapped to the present arms position in perfect synchronization. They weren't saluting her federal authority or her investigation. They were saluting Phoenix's daughter, acknowledging a debt owed to a fallen brother. Avery stopped, returning the salute with civilian precision her father had taught her. Then she did something unexpected. She pulled out his challenge coin and held it high, sunlight catching the metal. "Your brotherhood isn't broken," she called out, her voice carrying across the courtyard. "One corrupt leader doesn't define you. You are still the tip of the spear, still the ones who go where others can't. My father believed in what you represent. So do I." "Hoo-yah!" The response was thunderous, 40 voices united in the SEAL battle cry. As the formation dispersed, individual SEALs approached. Each had a story about her father, a mission where his intelligence had made the difference, a moment when Phoenix had appeared from nowhere with exactly the information they needed. "He saved my platoon in Fallujah. His intel package in Yemen was perfect. I wouldn't have made it home without his overwatch." By the time she reached her car, Avery had heard 20 stories of her father's shadow work. The man she'd known as a loving, if often absent father, had been a guardian angel to hundreds of operators, working in darkness to keep them in the light. The federal vehicles were waiting, engines running. The U.S. Marshal in charge, a former Marine named Rodriguez, nodded respectfully. "Ma'am, we have Admiral Huxley secured. He's requesting his lawyer. He'll need a good one." She looked back at the base, where normal operations were slowly resuming, despite the morning's earthquake. "We have enough evidence to bury him in FlexTech. If you've ever witnessed military justice, share your story below. We read every comment about accountability." Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, there's something else. We've received word that several FlexTech board members are attempting to leave the country. Private jets filed for international destinations. Ground them all." She pulled out her phone, speed dialing the Federal Aviation Administration. "This is Special Investigator Lane, authorization code 77 Alpha 9er. I need immediate ground stops on a list of aircraft." As she coordinated with federal agencies, Master Chief Brennan and Lieutenant Commander Torres stood guard, unconsciously falling into protective positions. They'd become her team without formal assignment, drawn by respect for her father's memory and recognition of her mission's importance. "Ma'am," Torres said quietly, "there's someone else you should know about. Captain Sarah Mitchell, the Admiral's niece. She commands a destroyer in the Persian Gulf. She's been refusing FlexTech equipment for her ship, citing compatibility issues. I think she knew something was wrong, but couldn't act without proof. Contact her." Avery made another note in her phone. "If she's been protecting her sailors by refusing bad equipment, she's an ally." The morning had progressed to afternoon, San Diego's sun beating down on the base with subtropical intensity. The Pacific Ocean sparkled deceptively calm, hiding currents that could drag the unwary to their deaths. Much like the military-industrial complex that generated billions in contracts while occasionally sacrificing those it claimed to protect. Avery's phone rang. The caller ID showed a blocked number, but the encryption signature indicated a secure government line. "Lane," she answered. "Ms. Lane, this is the Secretary of Defense." The voice was familiar from countless press conferences. "I've been briefed on your operation. Outstanding work." "Sir, this is just the beginning. The corruption goes deeper than one admiral. I know. That's why I'm giving you carte blanche. Full resources, any personnel you need, complete authority to investigate every defense contractor working with special operations. That's hundreds of companies, thousands of contracts. Then you'd better get started. The president wants this cleaned up before any more operators die from preventable failures." The line went dead. Avery stood holding the phone, feeling the weight of the assignment. David versus Goliath, if Goliath was a multi-billion-dollar industry with tentacles in every branch of government. "Ma'am?" Brennan asked, reading her expression. "We're going to war, Master Chief. Not with rifles and grenades, but with subpoenas and indictments." She looked at both men. "Are you in?" "Hoo-yah," Brennan replied without hesitation. "Yes, ma'am," Torres added, then with a small smile. "Though I should warn you, the last time someone took on this much of the defense industry, they ended up like your parents." The words hung in the air like smoke from a distant fire. The threat was real, had already claimed her family, but standing there in the afternoon sun, surrounded by warriors who had chosen justice over comfort, Avery felt her father's presence like a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'd better make sure we win." She walked toward the federal vehicles, her team falling in beside her. "Master Chief, I need a list of every operator killed with FlexTech equipment in the last decade. Commander Torres, compile all financial records linking Admiral Huxley to defense contractors. We're going to follow my father's advice. Follow the money. As they drove through the base gate, Avery saw Admiral Huxley in the back of another federal vehicle. Their eyes met through the bulletproof glass. He mouthed something that might have been a threat or a promise. She responded by holding up her father's challenge coin, letting him see the Operation Neptune Spear serial number. The message was clear. The mission wasn't over. The convoy turned north toward the federal building downtown where Huxley would be processed. Behind them, Naval Base Coronado continued its daily routine of creating warriors. But something fundamental had changed. The SEALs had seen one of their own, their highest-ranking officer, brought down by a woman with no military rank but unshakable moral authority. In the days that would follow, the story would spread through the special operations community like wildfire. Phoenix's daughter had returned to finish what her father started. The corrupt would be exposed, the guilty punished, and the fallen honored with the truth about how they died. But that was still to come. For now, Avery Lane sat in the back of a federal vehicle, reading her father's notebook, planning her next move in a war where the enemies wore suits instead of uniforms, and killed with contracts instead of bullets. The Admiral's office had been her D-Day, establishing a beachhead in enemy territory. Now came the long campaign to root out every corrupt contractor, every complicit officer, every bureaucrat who'd chosen profit over patriots. Her phone buzzed, another text, this one from an unknown number. Your mother was right. The truth will set us free, a friend from the inside. She studied the message, weighing its authenticity. In the intelligence world, friends and enemies often wore the same faces, separated only by circumstance and motivation. Master Chief, she said quietly, what do you know about psychological operations within the defense contracting world? Brennan's expression darkened. Enough to know that Admiral Huxley wasn't working alone. There's a whole network, ma'am. They call themselves the Brotherhood, but they're not about protecting operators. They're about protecting profits. Then the Brotherhood is about to meet its match. She pulled out a fresh notebook, beginning her own documentation. We're going to map their entire network, from the Pentagon to the production floors. The federal building loomed ahead, 20 stories of glass and steel, housing the machinery of justice. Somewhere inside, Admiral Huxley was about to learn that his rank meant nothing in federal custody. He'd be processed like any other suspect, fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in a holding cell to await arraignment. As they pulled into the secure garage, U.S. Marshal Rodriguez turned to Avery. Ma'am, there's been a development. 3 more defense contractors have contacted the U.S. Attorney's office requesting immunity in exchange for testimony. They're scared, Torres observed. Huxley's arrest sent shockwaves through the industry. Good. Avery gathered her files. Fear makes people honest. Let them all come forward. Every testimony builds our case. They entered through a secure entrance, avoiding the media that had already gathered at the main doors. News of a Navy admiral's arrest had broken on social media, posted by someone who had witnessed the arrest at Coronado. The video was grainy but clear enough. Federal agents leading a flag officer away in handcuffs. The U.S. Attorney, Jennifer Walsh, met them in a conference room overlooking the harbor. She was 45, with the sharp features of someone who had spent 20 years prosecuting federal cases and won most of them. Ms. Lane, outstanding work. We have enough to hold Huxley without bail. He's a flight risk with resources and connections worldwide. What about FlexTech? FBI is raiding their offices as we speak. SEC is freezing assets. IRS is beginning forensic accounting. Walsh smiled coldly. It's a beautiful thing when federal agencies cooperate. Avery spread her father's notebook on the table. This is just the beginning. My father identified 17 companies involved in systematic fraud. FlexTech was the biggest, but not the only one. Walsh studied the pages, her expression growing grimmer with each revelation. This suggests conspiracy at the highest levels. Joint Chiefs, Congressional Armed Services Committee, senior Pentagon officials. Yes, Avery met her gaze steadily. Are you prepared for that fight? Are you? Walsh countered. Taking on Admiral Huxley was one thing. He was a single bad actor, relatively speaking. But this, she gestured at the notebook, this is war against the entire military-industrial complex. These people have unlimited resources and no moral boundaries. Your parents already paid the price for challenging them. Which is exactly why I have to finish what they started. Avery's voice carried the quiet determination of someone who had already counted the cost. Every day we delay, more operators die using defective equipment. More families get folded flags and lies about training accidents. Master Chief Brennan spoke up. Ma'am, with respect to the U.S. Attorney, the Special Operations community is behind this investigation. We've lost too many brothers to preventable failures. Give us targets, and we'll provide intelligence. Carefully, Master Chief, Walsh warned. Military personnel conducting civilian investigations could compromise prosecutions. Not investigations, Brennan clarified. Information sharing. SEALs talk to Rangers, who talk to Delta, who talk to PJs. We all know which equipment fails, which contractors deliver substandard gear, which officers look the other way. That tribal knowledge could guide your investigation. Torres added, I've been documenting problems for 6 months, but other officers have been doing it longer. There's an underground network of military personnel trying to protect their troops from bad equipment. They just haven't had anyone to report to who wouldn't bury their concerns. Avery felt the shape of something larger forming. Not just an investigation, but a movement. Warriors tired of being betrayed by those meant to protect them, ready to fight back with truth instead of violence. Set up a secure tip line, she told Walsh. Anonymous submissions, encrypted communications, whistleblower protections. Let every service member know they can report equipment failures without retribution. That'll generate thousands of reports. Good. Data points create patterns. Patterns reveal conspiracies. She turned to Torres. Commander, can you identify trustworthy officers in each branch who could serve as focal points? Yes, ma'am. I know at least a dozen who've been fighting this fight in shadows. Walsh's phone rang. She answered, listened, then handed it to Avery. It's for you, Secretary of Defense. Ms. Lane, I'm watching Admiral Huxley's interrogation via secure feed. He's mentioned something called Prometheus. Ring any bells? Avery's blood chilled. She'd seen that word in her father's notebook, but hadn't understood its significance. No, sir. What's the context? He says Prometheus is why he can't be prosecuted. Claims it's a classified program that supersedes federal law. My staff has no record of any program by that name. A black project? Possibly, or he's bluffing. Either way, tread carefully. If Prometheus is real, you're about to enter waters even I can't navigate. The line went dead. Avery looked at the others, seeing her concern reflected in their faces. What's Prometheus? Walsh asked. According to Greek mythology, the titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. Avery pulled out her father's notebook, finding the single reference. My father wrote, Prometheus burns everything it touches. Stay away. Sound advice, Torres said nervously. If Phoenix himself was worried about it, Phoenix was worried about a lot of things, Brennan interjected, but he never let fear stop him from doing what was right. Avery made a decision. We continue the investigation. If Prometheus is real, we'll deal with it when we have to. For now, we focus on what we can prove: fraud, conspiracy, and murder. The insurance company Admiral Huxley had counted on for his legal defense withdrew coverage once federal charges were filed. Military legal insurance, even the premium packages marketed to flag officers, specifically excluded coverage for federal felony prosecutions. He'd have to fund his defense from personal assets, which were now frozen pending the investigation. Walsh received another call. The FBI found Thomas Kramer's family. They're in protective custody, willing to testify about the threats they received before his disappearance. Any physical evidence linking Huxley to the threats? Emails from IP addresses tracing back to Naval Base Coronado. Phone records showing calls from Huxley's personal cell to Kramer's home the day before he vanished. Sloppy, Brennan observed. The Admiral got comfortable, thought his rank made him untouchable. Arrogance is often the downfall of powerful men, Avery replied, thinking of her mother's words years ago when explaining why she'd chosen law over medicine. They forget that gravity affects everyone equally. The afternoon wore on as they built their case, each piece of evidence adding weight to the prosecution. Financial records showed millions in kickbacks funneled through shell companies. Equipment test results had been falsified with what forensic analysts called amateur manipulation. Witnesses emerged from shadows, emboldened by Huxley's arrest. At 5:30 p.m., Avery stood on the federal building's observation deck, watching the sun set over San Diego Bay. Naval vessels moved through the harbor with practiced precision, their crews unaware of the earthquake that had shaken their command structure. Master Chief Brennan joined her, offering a cup of coffee. Black, no sugar. Figured you for someone who takes it serious. Good guess. She accepted the cup, its warmth contrasting with the cooling evening air. Master Chief, what will happen to the SEALs now? With their admiral disgraced? We'll adapt. It's what we do. He leaned against the railing, his scarred hands steady despite the caffeine. But there'll be soul-searching. How did we not see it? How did we let him operate for so long? Because you wanted to believe in your leadership. Trust is essential in combat. Trust but verify. We forgot the second part. He was quiet for a moment. Your father never forgot. He verified everything, trusted nothing at face value. It's why he was so good at intelligence work. It's also why he's dead. Maybe, or maybe he died because he was the only one brave enough to look for truth in a world of lies. They stood in companionable silence, watching lights flicker on across the city. Somewhere out there, FlexTech executives were destroying documents, erasing hard drives, calling lawyers. The machinery of cover-up grinding into motion, even as federal agents closed in. Ma'am, Torres approached, his face grave. We have a problem. Judge Morrison, the one who signed Huxley's arrest warrant, he's been in a car accident. Avery's coffee cup stopped halfway to her lips. When? 30 minutes ago. His vehicle was hit by a truck that ran a red light. The truck driver fled the scene. Morrison's condition? Critical. He's in surgery at UC San Diego Medical Center. The coffee suddenly tasted like ashes. The Brotherhood, or Prometheus, or whatever they called themselves, had struck back. The message was clear. Pursue this investigation and face the consequences. Double security on all witnesses, Avery ordered, and I want protection details on the prosecution team. Walsh appeared in the doorway. Already done. The FBI is treating Morrison's accident as attempted murder. Traffic cameras show the truck accelerating into the intersection, not braking. They're escalating, Brennan observed grimly. Whoever's behind this isn't going to let Huxley take the fall alone. Then we escalate too. Avery pulled out her phone, dialing a number from memory. Director, this is Lane. I need a JSOC protection detail and a safe house. Yes, sir. Prometheus is active. The safe house was a nondescript two-story building in suburban Chula Vista, surrounded by identical homes filled with Navy families who wouldn't ask questions about black SUVs and armed guards. Avery stood in the command center they had established, in what had been a family room, watching feeds from security cameras while Master Chief Brennan coordinated with the protection detail. Judge Morrison is stable, Torres reported, entering with a tablet. He's conscious and wants to speak with you. Can he identify the truck driver? Better, he recognized him. Former SEAL, discharged 5 years ago for excessive force. Now works private security for guess who? FlexTech, Avery said without hesitation. Their subsidiary, Titan Security Solutions. Torres pulled up corporate records. They provide personal protection for defense industry executives. Looks like they also handle problems that require more direct solutions. The tablet showed a roster of Titan employees. Nearly all were former special operations, men trained to kill efficiently and disappear without trace. The Brotherhood had its own private army. Ma'am, one of the JSOC operators called out. We have movement. 3 vehicles approaching, tactical spacing. Avery moved to the window, studying the approaching SUVs through night vision optics. They stopped exactly outside the property line, engines running, positioned to block all exit routes. They're not trying to hide, Brennan observed. They want us to know they're here. Her phone rang. Unknown number, but she recognized the voice immediately. Admiral Huxley, calling from federal custody. Hello, Avery. I hope you're enjoying your evening. How are you calling me? You're supposed to be in isolation. Oh, my dear. You still don't understand. The Brotherhood has members everywhere. Guards, administrators, even federal prosecutors. We're not an organization, we're a philosophy. The philosophy that American strength requires certain moral flexibilities. Like murdering whistleblowers? Like protecting programs that keep this nation dominant. His voice carried the conviction of a true believer. Do you know what Prometheus really is? Enlighten me. It's the next generation of warfare, directed energy weapons, AI-controlled drone swarms, bioweapons that can target specific genetic markers. Science fiction made real, decades ahead of our enemies. And FlexTech provides components? FlexTech provides cover. The money from those contracts funds black research that Congress would never approve. Every dollar skimmed from a defective radio buys us technology that China and Russia can only dream about. Avery felt pieces clicking into place. You're saying the equipment failures were intentional? You killed American soldiers to fund illegal weapons research? Sacrifices, Huxley corrected. Every war has casualties. Those men died to ensure American dominance for the next century. They died because you sold them defective equipment. The equipment worked exactly as designed. 90% reliability, 10% failure rate, enough to generate profit without raising suspicions, until your father started seeing patterns. The admission hit like a physical blow. Her father had been right. The failures weren't accidents or incompetence, but calculated murder. Phoenix was brilliant, Huxley continued. Too brilliant. He found connections we thought were invisible. So, we arranged for the Taliban to receive intel about his team's route. The radio failures just ensured they couldn't call for help. You gave American positions to the enemy? Even Brennan, listening on speaker, looked sickened. We gave outdated intelligence that happened to become accurate. Plausible deniability is an art form, Ms. Lane. You're confessing to treason. I'm explaining reality. This call is encrypted and routed through 17 countries. By the time your tech people trace it, the data will be destroyed. I'm telling you this as a courtesy, professional to professional. Walk away. Take a generous retirement, maybe a consulting position with a nice think tank. Your investigation ends here. Or what? Or you join your parents. Your mother's heart attack was induced using a classified pharmaceutical that mimics natural cardiac arrest. Undetectable unless you know exactly what to look for. We have plenty more. Avery's hand tightened on the phone until her knuckles went white. You're threatening a federal investigator. I'm offering you a choice. The same choice we gave your father. He chose poorly. He chose honor. And where did that get him? Dead in a foreign country, his daughter growing up without him, his wife dying of grief disguised as heart failure. Huxley's voice softened with false sympathy. Don't repeat their mistakes. Here's my counteroffer, Avery said coldly. You provide full disclosure about Prometheus, testify against your co-conspirators, and I'll recommend life imprisonment instead of execution for treason. Huxley laughed. Execution? This isn't the Cold War. We don't execute people for treason anymore. We do when they directly cause the deaths of American service members by providing intelligence to enemy forces. You just confessed to getting my father's team ambushed. That's not just treason, it's murder with special circumstances. Silence on the line. Then, the vehicles outside your safe house contain enough firepower to level the building. You have 10 minutes to decide. The line went dead. Avery looked at the team assembled in the room. 6 JSOC operators, Master Chief Brennan, Lieutenant Commander Torres, and 2 FBI agents. 13 people against an unknown number of trained killers. Options? She asked the senior JSOC operator, a Delta Force captain named Williams. We can hold this position indefinitely. They make a move, we call in backup. This is still American soil. They can't just assault a federal safe house. They can if they make it look like something else, Torres pointed out. Gas leak explosion, electrical fire, gang violence. This neighborhood has enough military families that people are used to unusual activity. Brennan studied the tactical display. 3 vehicles, probably 4 or 5 operators each. That's 15 to 20 hostiles. Bad odds if they're all former special operations. They won't attack, Avery said suddenly. This is psychological warfare. They want us scared, making mistakes. If they wanted us dead, they wouldn't announce themselves. She pulled out her phone, not her encrypted government device, but her personal cell. She scrolled through contacts until she found a number she hadn't called in years. Sarah? It's Avery Lane, Phoenix's daughter. Captain Sarah Mitchell, Admiral Huxley's niece commanding a destroyer in the Persian Gulf, answered immediately. Avery, I heard about my uncle. I'm sorry about everything. I need your help. Anything. You've been refusing FlexTech equipment. You knew something was wrong. I suspected. Equipment would arrive with perfect documentation, but feel wrong. Weight slightly off, materials that didn't match specifications. I couldn't prove anything, so I cited compatibility issues and sourced alternatives. You protected your crew. It's a captain's responsibility. Sarah's voice hardened. Unlike my uncle, I take that seriously. I need everything you have. Documentation, test results, correspondence. And Sarah, we're being watched. This call is probably monitored. Let them listen. I'm done protecting the family name while sailors die. The connection crackled with distance and encryption. Avery, there's something else. 3 weeks ago, we intercepted communications between Iranian forces. They were discussing American equipment failures, specific technical details about FlexTech products. They knew things they shouldn't know. The implication was staggering. Someone's selling information to hostile powers? Or trading it? Iran suddenly has technical capabilities they shouldn't possess for another decade. I think Prometheus isn't just researching advanced weapons. They're bartering American vulnerabilities for foreign technology. That's treason on a scale. Avery couldn't finish the sentence. The enormity of the conspiracy defied comprehension. It's why I've been documenting everything. I'm sending you an encrypted file now, everything I've collected over 2 years. The download began immediately, gigabytes of data flowing through military satellites to Avery's tablet. As it transferred, she watched the vehicles outside. They hadn't moved, engines still running, waiting. "Ma'am," Williams called out, "we have air support inbound, 2 Apache helicopters from Camp Pendleton. Whoever's in those vehicles is about to have a very bad night." The sound of rotor blades became audible in the distance, growing louder as the Army attack helicopters approached. The vehicles outside suddenly reversed, speeding away as the Apaches appeared overhead, their spotlights turning night into day. "They're running," Torres observed with satisfaction. "No," Avery corrected. "They're regrouping. This was a probe, testing our responses. Now they know we have military support." Her phone rang again. This time it was the U.S. Attorney Walsh. "Avery, we have a problem. Huxley's lawyer just filed a motion claiming his arrest was illegal because you exceeded your authority. He's arguing that military personnel can only be arrested by military police for crimes committed on base. That's nonsense. Federal law supersedes." "I know, but he's judge shopping, looking for someone sympathetic to military independence. If he finds the right judge, Huxley could be released within hours." Avery felt the walls closing in. Legal maneuvering, physical intimidation, systemic corruption. The Brotherhood was attacking on all fronts. "There's more," Walsh continued. 3 witnesses have recanted their statements. They claim coercion, say you threatened them. That's a lie. Of course it is, but it muddies the water, creates reasonable doubt. Huxley's legal team is very good, and they have unlimited resources. Through the window, Avery saw neighbors emerging from their homes, drawn by the helicopter noise. Military families accustomed to unusual sights, but even they found Apaches hovering over suburbia noteworthy. Several were recording with their phones. "We need something definitive," she told Walsh. "Something Huxley can't deny or deflect." "Like what?" "Like Prometheus itself. If we can expose the program, show the American people what their tax dollars are really funding, the public outrage will be unstoppable. That's a dangerous game. Some secrets are classified for good reasons, and some are classified to hide crimes." Avery made a decision. "I'm going to the source." "What source?" "The one place Huxley can't influence. The one person who knows everything but hasn't been compromised." She hung up and turned to the team. "Master Chief, you said SEALs talk to Rangers who talk to Delta. I need to talk to someone specific. Someone who worked with my father on his last mission." Brennan's eyes widened in understanding. "You want to talk to Reaper?" "Who's Reaper?" Torres asked. "Master Sergeant Marcus Cole, Delta Force. He was supposed to be on the mission where Phoenix died, but got pulled at the last minute for a priority target in Pakistan. He's always blamed himself for not being there. Where is he now? Fort Liberty, teaching at the Special Operations Medical Course. Still active duty? Retired 3 years ago, but works as a civilian instructor. The man's a legend. 4 Silver Stars, Distinguished Service Cross, more Purple Hearts than anyone should survive." Avery checked her watch. 9:20 p.m. Pacific Time, past midnight on the East Coast. But this couldn't wait. "Get him on secure comms. Tell him Phoenix's daughter needs to speak with him." 20 minutes later, the encrypted video connection established, Master Sergeant Marcus Cole's weathered face filled the screen. 62 years old, built like granite, with eyes that had seen humanity's worst and somehow maintained faith in its best. "You look like him," were his first words. Same eyes, same determination. Michael talked about you constantly. Master Sergeant Cole, Marcus, please. Your father saved my life 7 times. Least I can do is drop the formality. Marcus, I need to know about Prometheus. His expression darkened. That's a conversation that'll get us both killed. They already tried tonight. I'm past caring about threats. He studied her through the screen, weighing risks against obligations. Your father was investigating Prometheus when he died. He'd found evidence that American weapons technology was being traded to foreign powers in exchange for biological weapons research data. Biological weapons are banned by international treaty. Treaties only matter if someone enforces them. Prometheus operates outside all oversight, answering only to a council of defense contractors and intelligence officials who believe American dominance justifies any means. Do you have proof? Marcus stood and walked off screen. When he returned, he held the encrypted hard drive. Everything your father collected plus what I've added since his death. Financial records, communications, test data on weapons that violate every international law. But Avery, if you use this, they'll come for you with everything they have. They already are. No, you've seen their warning shots. When Prometheus truly targets someone, they don't just die. They're erased. Records altered, accomplishments attributed to others, families convinced they never existed. Your father was being systematically deleted when he died. Another year, and there would have been no record of Phoenix ever serving. The weight of that revelation settled over the room. Not just murder, but complete annihilation of memory and legacy. How do I stop them? You don't stop them. You expose them. Sunshine is the only disinfectant that works on this level of corruption. But it has to be all at once, so overwhelming they can't contain it. Like WikiLeaks? Bigger. This needs to hit every major news outlet simultaneously, with evidence so compelling that no amount of spin can deflect it. Avery looked at the team around her. Military personnel sworn to protect classified information, federal agents bound by legal procedures. What Marcus was suggesting bordered on treason itself. I'll need help, she said finally. You have it. There are hundreds of us. Operators who've lost brothers to Prometheus decisions, who've seen American technology in enemy hands, who've been ordered to forget what we witnessed. We're ready to stand up. It'll end careers. Some things matter more than careers. Honor, integrity, the oath we swore to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Prometheus is a domestic enemy, Avery. They're killing Americans to fund operations that violate everything we claim to stand for. Brennan stepped forward. Marcus, this is Bill Brennan. If we do this, it needs to be coordinated. One voice, one message, impossible to ignore. Already in motion. Check your encrypted channels in 30 minutes. You'll see something interesting. The connection ended, leaving them in tense silence. Torres was the first to speak. If we participate in unauthorized disclosure of classified information, we're looking at federal prison. Only if we lose, Williams pointed out. If we win, we're whistleblowers who expose the largest conspiracy in American military history. That's a big if, one of the FBI agents said. These people have resources we can't match. Avery pulled up Sarah Mitchell's files on her tablet. The evidence was damning. Communications between FlexTech and Iranian intermediaries, technology transfers that explain sudden advances in Chinese military capabilities, and financial records showing hundreds of millions in off-the-books transactions. They've been selling out America for 20 years, she said quietly. Every military advantage we've lost. Every operation that went bad because the enemy knew too much. Every soldier who died from equipment failure. It all traces back to Prometheus. At 9:50 p.m., her encrypted channel activated. A simple message appeared. Watch the news. She turned on the television to find every major network breaking the same story. Hundreds of special operations veterans had simultaneously released statements accusing defense contractors of systematic fraud resulting in operator deaths. The coordination was perfect, each statement supporting the others, creating an undeniable narrative. Former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill, the man credited with killing bin Laden, appeared on CNN. I've lost 17 teammates to equipment failures that weren't accidents. It's time America knew the truth. On Fox News, Medal of Honor recipient Dakota Meyer spoke directly to camera. We were betrayed by the people supposed to protect us. Defense contractors got rich while warriors died. MSNBC featured retired General Stanley McChrystal. I've remained silent too long. Prometheus exists, and it's a cancer on our national security. The dam had broken, decades of suppressed truth flooding into public consciousness. Walsh called immediately. "What have you done? What needed to be done? Check your secure email." Avery sent everything: Sarah Mitchell's files, Marcus Cole's evidence, her father's notebook, the recorded confession from Admiral Huxley. Terabytes of proof that American defense contractors had been trading military secrets for profit while killing service members who threatened exposure. "This is extensive," Walsh said after a pause. "But without chain of custody, much of it won't be admissible in court." "It doesn't need to be. Public opinion is the court that matters now. Once Americans know their sons and daughters died for contractor profits, political pressure will demand action." Through the window, she saw the 3 SUVs returning, this time accompanied by 2 more vehicles. The Brotherhood was mobilizing for a final assault. "Williams, how long until backup arrives?" 10 minutes for ground units, 5 for air support." "We might not have 5 minutes." The vehicles stopped, doors opening in synchronized precision. 20 operators emerged, weapons at ready, moving toward the safe house with practiced efficiency. Then something unexpected happened. Master Chief Brennan's phone rang. He answered, listened, then handed it to Avery. "For you, someone who insists on speaking with you personally." The voice on the other end was cultured, elderly, carrying authority beyond any rank or title. "Ms. Lane, my name is irrelevant, but I speak for people who shape American policy at the highest levels, the real power behind Prometheus. Then you're responsible for murdering American soldiers. I'm responsible for maintaining American global dominance. Every empire requires sacrifice. We're not an empire, aren't we? Military bases in 70 countries, the dollar as global reserve currency, cultural hegemony that makes the world wear our jeans and watch our movies. That's empire, Ms. Lane, and empires don't maintain themselves. They don't require murdering their own soldiers either, don't they? Rome decimated legions to maintain discipline. The British Empire sacrificed thousands to hold India. We've been remarkably efficient by comparison. Outside, the operators had formed a perimeter, waiting for orders. The Apache helicopters circled overhead, weapon systems locked, but not engaging. "What do you want?" Avery asked. "To offer you a deal. Complete disclosure about Prometheus in exchange for your silence. You'll know everything, every operation, every technology, every decision. You'll understand why we do what we do. And then you join us or disappear. Those are the only options that end with you alive." Federal investigation attorneys specializing in cases that cross military and civilian jurisdiction maintain offices in major cities, available 24/7 for consultation at militaryjusticedefenders.com. Their expertise becomes crucial when dealing with classification issues that could determine case outcomes. Avery looked at the team around her, saw resolve in their faces despite the odds. These were warriors who'd faced worse than death. They'd faced dishonor and chosen integrity. "I have a counteroffer," she said. "Complete shutdown of Prometheus, full prosecution of everyone involved, and restitution to the families of every service member killed by your fraud." "That's not an offer, it's a fantasy. Check the news again." The old man paused, presumably looking at another screen. The silence stretched before he spoke again, his voice now carrying an edge of concern. "You've started something you can't control. Good. Control is what got us here. Maybe chaos will get us out." She heard him typing, likely sending orders to the operators outside. "You have no idea what you're destroying. The technologies we've developed, the threats we've countered, the wars we've prevented. History will judge you harshly. History will judge me honestly. That's more than you'll get." She hung up and immediately addressed the team. "They're going to breach, defensive positions." The JSOC operators moved with fluid precision, taking positions that covered all entry points. Brennan and Torres grabbed rifles from the weapons cache, their military training overriding any hesitation about civilian law enforcement protocols. "Ma'am," Williams said, "rules of engagement? Defend ourselves, protect the evidence, survive to testify." She pulled her father's SIG Power from her bag, checking the magazine. "They want to fight. We give them one they'll remember." The lights cut out simultaneously, plunging the house into darkness. Night vision equipment activated, turning the world green and grainy. Through the windows, Avery saw the operators advancing using the same tactics American forces had perfected in Iraq and Afghanistan. The irony wasn't lost on her. Americans about to fight Americans using techniques developed to fight America's enemies. The first breach came through the back door, an explosive charge that should have stunned the defenders. But Williams had anticipated it, his team positioned to create overlapping fields of fire that stopped the assault cold. "Contact rear," he called out, his suppressed rifle coughing steadily. The front door exploded inward simultaneously, but Torres and an FBI agent were ready, their weapons driving back the initial wave. The house became a battlefield, suppressed weapons creating a deadly whisper of violence. Avery stayed central, protecting the hard drives containing evidence while coordinating with outside support. "Where's our backup?" 2 minutes out, Walsh reported over comms. "Federal marshals and FBI SWAT converging on your position." 2 minutes was an eternity in close quarters combat. The attackers were good, using flashbangs and smoke to disorient defenders, probing for weaknesses with professional patience. Then Brennan did something unexpected. He stood up in full view and bellowed in his command voice. "SEALs stand down! This is Master Chief William Brennan! You're attacking fellow Americans!" The firing paused. Through the smoke, a voice called back. "Master Chief, is that you? Rodriguez, you stupid son of a... What are you doing?" "Following orders, Master Chief. They said you'd gone rogue, that you were helping terrorists." "Do I look like I'm helping terrorists? I'm protecting a federal investigation into the murder of American service members." The attacking operators held position, confusion evident in their tactical formation. These were men trained to follow orders without question, but also men who'd served under Brennan, who knew his reputation for unshakable integrity. "They lied to you," Avery called out, taking the risk of exposing herself. "Check your phones. Every major network is running the story. Defense contractors have been killing SEALs for profit." One of the attackers, still in cover, pulled out his phone. The glow illuminated his shocked expression as he read the breaking news. "Holy... Master Chief, is this real?" "Real as the funeral flags given to families who deserved better," Brennan replied. "You're on the wrong side of this fight, boys." The sound of approaching sirens filled the night, federal and local law enforcement converging on the suburban battlefield. The Apache helicopters descended lower, their spotlights turning the yard into stark relief. "Prometheus operators, this is the FBI," an amplified voice announced. "You're surrounded. Lay down your weapons and exit with your hands visible." For a moment, the balance hung on a knife's edge, 20 trained killers weighing loyalty against law, orders against oath. Then Senior Chief Rodriguez made his decision. He stood up, placed his rifle on the ground, and raised his hands. "I'm not fighting Americans to protect defense contractors. Not happening." One by one, the other operators followed suit. Men who'd stormed compounds in Fallujah and Kandahar, surrendering in suburban San Diego, choosing conscience over orders. As FBI agents mubbed in to secure the scene, Avery noticed one operator hadn't surrendered. He was moving through the smoke toward her position, weapon raised. She recognized him from the Titan security files. Kurt Wagner, former Delta Force, discharged for war crimes in Syria. "You killed everything we built," he snarled, finger moving to the trigger. The shot was impossibly loud in the confined space, but it wasn't Wagner's weapon that fired. Master Chief Brennan stood behind the falling operator, smoke rising from his rifle. "Clear," he announced calmly, as if this was just another training exercise. Wagner collapsed, his weapon clattering across the floor. The FBI medical team rushed in, but Avery could see it was too late. Center mass shot from a man who didn't miss. "He gave me no choice," Brennan said quietly. "He was going to kill you." "I know." She put her hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension in his muscles. "You saved my life. Your father would have done the same for me." The scene outside looked like a war zone. Federal agents processing surrendered operators, helicopters overhead, media vans arriving as word spread of the confrontation. The quiet suburban street had become ground zero for the collapse of Prometheus. Walsh arrived with a full prosecution team, immediately taking charge of the legal battlefield. "Avery, we have enough. The evidence, the witnesses, the public pressure. Congress is calling emergency hearings. The president wants a full briefing. Prometheus is finished." "What about Admiral Huxley?" "Being transferred to military custody pending court-martial. He'll face both civilian and military justice." She paused. "You did it. You brought down the entire network." But Avery felt no triumph, only exhaustion and grief. The cost had been so high. Her parents, dead. Dozens of operators killed by equipment failures, families destroyed, trust shattered, honor stained. Torres approached with a tablet. "Ma'am, you need to see this." The screen showed a live feed from Arlington National Cemetery. Hundreds of special operations veterans had gathered at Section 60, where the latest casualties were buried. They stood in silent vigil, each holding a candle, honoring the fallen who had been betrayed by those meant to protect them. Among them, Avery recognized faces from the news: Medal of Honor recipients, SEAL Team 6 members, Delta Force operators. The elite of America's military, united not in combat, but in grief and determination for justice. "We should go," Brennan suggested. "Pay our respects. It's 3,000 miles away. There's a military transport leaving in an hour. I may have arranged for us to be on it." The flight east passed in contemplative silence. Avery read through her father's notebook again, seeing new meanings in his cryptic notes now that she understood the full scope of Prometheus. He'd been so close to exposing everything, just days away from bringing it all down when they'd arranged his death. The aircraft landed at Joint Base Andrews as the sun rose over Washington. A convoy waited to take them to Arlington, where the crowd had grown to over 1,000 veterans maintaining their vigil. As Avery walked among the white headstones, she found her father's grave. The inscription read simply, "Petty Officer First Class Michael Lane, United States Navy, loving father, silent warrior." She knelt beside it, placing his challenge coin on the marble. Around her, other family members were doing the same at other graves, creating a constellation of metal on stone, each coin representing a debt of honor now being paid. Next week's story reveals how a female Marine silenced an entire courtroom with just 3 words. Make sure to subscribe for that incredible moment of justice. Master Chief Brennan stood beside her, his own challenge coin in hand. "Your father would be proud. You finished his mission." "We finished it," she corrected. "All of us." The crowd began to disperse as the morning progressed, but Avery remained at her father's grave. She had so much to tell him, so much he'd never know, his granddaughter he'd never meet, if she ever had children, the cases she'd solve using lessons he'd taught. The justice finally delivered for his death. Walsh approached quietly. "The Attorney General wants to offer you a position, leading a new task force investigating defense contractor fraud. Full resources, independent authority, answering only to the AG. Hunting the remnants of Prometheus? And preventing the next version, because there will be attempts to resurrect it under different names. There always are." Avery stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "I accept, on one condition. My team comes with me. Master Chief Brennan, Lieutenant Commander Torres, the others who stood with me. They've proven their integrity." "Done. When can you start?" "We've already started." As they walked back through the cemetery, Avery noticed a woman in her 60s placing flowers on a grave. She recognized her from photographs. Thomas Kramer's widow, the whistleblower who had tried to expose FlexTech's fraud and paid with his life. Avery approached slowly. "Mrs. Kramer?" The woman looked up, tears streaming down her face. "You're the one who caught them, who made them pay for what they did to Tom. Your husband was a hero. He tried to save lives. He was an engineer who loved puzzles. The equipment failures were a puzzle he couldn't ignore." She touched the headstone gently. "They killed him for his curiosity. They killed him because he threatened their profits. But his death wasn't in vain. The evidence he gathered saved lives, exposed the truth." Mrs. Kramer pulled out an envelope. "He left this for whoever finally listened. Said to give it to the person who brought justice." Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten note. "The truth doesn't die. It waits. Thank you for listening." The flash drive contained Thomas Kramer's personal investigation, even more extensive than what Avery had found. Design flaws deliberately introduced, test results falsified with mathematical precision, a systematic approach to creating equipment that would fail at statistically acceptable rates. "This is evidence of premeditated murder," Torres said, reading over her shoulder. "They calculated exactly how many deaths they could cause without triggering investigation." "Until my father started connecting dots," Avery replied. "He saw the pattern because he was looking for it." Her phone rang. The caller ID showed a blocked number, but she recognized the voice immediately, the elderly man who'd claimed to speak for Prometheus. "Congratulations, Ms. Lane. You've won this round. This isn't a game. Everything is a game at sufficient scale. You've cost us a profitable operation, but there are others. There always are. I'll find them. I'm counting on it. You see, Prometheus needed to evolve. It had become complacent, sloppy. You've done us a favor by forcing adaptation. You're saying this was planned? Not planned, but not entirely unwelcome. The Phoenix burns to be reborn stronger. Prometheus brings fire to humanity. Both myths involve destruction preceding advancement. Philosophy won't protect you from prosecution. No, but jurisdiction will. I'm calling from international waters on a ship flagged to no nation. The money is in cryptocurrencies untraceable to any individual. The operations continue under names you'll never discover until bodies start appearing. Then I'll keep investigating. Good. You're your father's daughter. He was the best adversary we ever had. Forced us to improve, innovate, evolve. You'll do the same. This isn't a compliment. You murdered him. We removed an obstacle. There's a difference, though I don't expect you to appreciate the distinction. What do you want? To offer you one last piece of information, call it professional courtesy. Check Senator Harrison's voting record on defense appropriations. Compare it to his personal investment portfolio. You'll find interesting correlations. The line went dead. Avery immediately began researching. Senator James Harrison, chairman of the Armed Services Committee, had consistently voted for increased defense spending while personally investing in companies that benefited from those appropriations. He's feeding us targets, Torres observed, using us to eliminate competition or problematic allies. Let him, Avery replied. Every corrupt official we remove is a victory, regardless of who benefits. The investigation into Senator Harrison would take months, but the pattern was clear. Prometheus hadn't been a single conspiracy, but a cancer metastasized throughout the defense establishment. Cutting out one tumor only revealed others. 6 months later, Avery stood in a federal courthouse in San Diego, watching as Admiral Grant Huxley was sentenced to life in military prison. He'd been convicted on 17 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, hundreds of counts of fraud, and treason for providing intelligence to enemy forces. He stood at attention as the verdict was read, his uniform stripped of all decorations except the basic service ribbons. The trident he had worn with such pride had been formally removed in a ceremony where every SEAL present turned their backs on him. "Do you have anything to say?" the judge asked. Huxley looked directly at Avery. "I regret nothing. Everything I did was for American security." "You killed Americans for money," the judge replied. "That's not patriotism. It's greed wrapped in a flag." As they led him away, Huxley maintained military bearing, but Avery saw the truth in his eyes. He was a broken man, his identity shattered, his legacy destroyed. The warrior who had survived impossible missions, undone by his own corruption. Outside the courthouse, media waited with cameras and questions. Avery had become the face of the investigation, the woman who had brought down Prometheus, but she deflected attention to the real heroes. "This victory belongs to the operators who spoke truth to power," she told the cameras. "The veterans who risked everything to expose corruption. The families who never stopped asking questions about their loved ones' deaths." A reporter pushed forward. "What's next for you, Ms. Lane?" "The work continues. Prometheus was one program. There are others, hiding in classification shadows, trading American lives for profit. We're going to find them all." Master Chief Brennan stood beside her, now officially part of her task force. Lieutenant Commander Torres flanked her other side, wearing civilian clothes but maintaining military posture. They had become her core team, joined by a dozen other investigators committed to reforming defense contracting. That evening, they gathered at a beach bar in Coronado, the same place where SEALs had celebrated successful missions for decades. The owner, a former Team 6 operator, had closed it to the public, allowing the task force and supportive veterans to decompress privately. "To Phoenix," Brennan raised his beer. "Who started this fight?" "To Phoenix," the room echoed. Avery raised her own glass. "To the operators we lost and the ones we'll save." They drank in silence, each carrying their own memories of friends lost to preventable failures. The investigation had succeeded, but the cost was counted in folded flags and grieving families. Torres pulled out his phone. "You all need to see this." The screen showed a news report from Syria. American Special Operations Forces had successfully rescued 12 hostages using new equipment that had performed flawlessly under extreme conditions. The gear came from a company Avery's task force had vetted and approved, replacing Flextech's defective products. First confirmed save, Williams noted. Your work is already protecting operators. Our work, Avery corrected. She looked around the room at the faces of warriors who'd chosen justice over comfortable solace. None of this happens without all of us. Her phone buzzed with the encrypted message. The elderly Prometheus voice had sent coordinates and a single word, Leviathan. She showed it to Brennan, who immediately recognized the location. That's in the mountains of Colorado, Cheyenne Mountain area, but not the NORAD facility. Another black site? Has to be. That area is riddled with classified installations. Avery made a decision. We investigate tomorrow. If Prometheus is trying to resurrect under a new name, we stop it before it takes root. It could be a trap, Torres warned. Everything could be a trap. That doesn't mean we stop moving forward. The conversation shifted to operational planning, but Avery's mind drifted to her father. Would he approve of what she'd become? A hunter of shadows, destroyer of conspiracies, the woman who'd turned his death into a catalyst for reformation? She thought he would. Phoenix had always believed in justice over comfort, truth over convenience. She was continuing his mission with methods he couldn't have imagined, backed by authorities he'd never have gotten. As midnight approached, the gathering began to disperse. Veterans exchanged numbers, promised to maintain vigilance, offered support for future operations. A network of integrity forming to replace the Brotherhood's corruption. Captain Sarah Mitchell appeared at Avery's table, still in uniform, having flown in from Bahrain for the sentencing. My uncle asked to see me before they took him away. He wanted me to give you a message. Avery tensed. What message? He said the real Prometheus isn't a program or organization, it's an idea. The idea that American dominance justifies any means. Until that idea dies, new versions will keep emerging. He's probably right. He also said you're the antibody the system needed, that your father would be proud of what you've accomplished. Sarah paused. I think he actually respects you, in his twisted way. The feeling isn't mutual. I didn't expect it would be. Sarah stood to leave, then turned back. My ship needs a new intelligence specialist. Someone trained in pattern recognition and threat assessment. The position comes with a commission, if you're interested. I'm honored, but my war is here, in courtrooms and congressional hearings, not on the ocean. The offer stands if you change your mind. The Navy could use more officers with your integrity. After Sarah left, Avery walked alone to the beach. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly westward, toward bases in Japan, Korea, Guam, each hosting American forces equipped with gear that might save or doom them, depending on contractor honesty. Her phone rang one final time. Director of National Intelligence, the President's senior advisor on all intelligence matters. Ms. Lane, the President wants to thank you personally for your service. There's a Medal of Freedom with your name on it. I don't need medals, Director. I need resources to continue the investigation. You'll have them. Blank check. Whatever you need. The President is serious about reform. What about Leviathan? Silence on the line. Then, how do you know that name? Anonymous tip. What is it? Theoretical at this point. A proposed merger of defense contractors into a single entity controlling 70% of military procurement. It would make Prometheus look like a corner store. When? Vote is next month, behind closed doors. We've been trying to stop it, but the lobbying is intense. Send me everything. We'll make it public before they can vote. That's dangerous, Avery. These people have resources that dwarf what you've faced. Then I'd better have good backup. She ended the call and looked back at the bar where her team was still planning. Warriors who had traded bullets for subpoenas, violence for justice. They'd face whatever came next together. Her father's challenge coin caught moonlight in her pocket. She pulled it out, reading the inscription on the back she'd never noticed before. The only easy day was yesterday. Tomorrow would be harder. Leviathan would be stronger than Prometheus, better prepared, more ruthless. But she had advantages her father never did. Public support, legal authority, and a team of operators who had chosen truth over comfort. The war against corruption wasn't ending. It was evolving, but so was she. Walking back to the bar, she found Brennan waiting outside. Master Chief, how do you feel about Colorado? Rocky Mountains, thin air, probably heavily defended secret installations? He grinned. Sounds like a good time. Gather the team. We leave at dawn. Roger that, ma'am. As they re-entered the bar, Avery noticed someone had added her father's photo to the wall of honor, alongside other operators who'd died in service. But unlike the others, his photo had a new addition, a small plaque reading Truth Warrior. Torres raised a final toast. To those who fight in shadows to bring light. The room echoed the sentiment, voices united in purpose. Outside, the Pacific waves continued their eternal rhythm, indifferent to human struggles. But inside, a brotherhood and sisterhood of integrity prepared for the next battle. The investigation into Leviathan would reveal connections between defense contractors and pharmaceutical companies developing prohibited biological weapons. It would expose senators taking bribes, generals selling secrets, and CEOs treating American lives as acceptable losses. But that was tomorrow's fight. Tonight, they remembered the fallen, celebrated the small victory, and prepared for the larger war ahead. As the gathering finally ended, Avery stood in the parking lot, looking at the stars. Somewhere up there, satellites built by defense contractors circled endlessly, watching everything, recording movements, enabling both protection and surveillance. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from unknown numbers. The Leviathan was already reacting to the threat she posed. Good. Let them worry. Let them scramble. Let them know that Phoenix's daughter was coming for them with the same relentless determination that had brought down Prometheus. Master Chief Brennan appeared beside her. "Ma'am, the transport to Colorado is arranged. 0600 departure. Outstanding. And Master Chief, thank you for everything." "Thank you, ma'am. You gave us a chance to fight for something that matters." They stood in comfortable silence, two warriors from different generations, united by purpose. The parking lot emptied, leaving only their vehicles and the sound of distant waves. "Your father would be proud," Brennan said quietly. "I hope so. I know so. You didn't just complete his mission, you exceeded it. He wanted to expose the truth. You're ensuring it never happens again." A helicopter passed overhead, navigation lights blinking steadily against the darkening California sky. The rhythmic thump of rotor blades echoed off the surrounding buildings, a sound that had become the soundtrack to military life in San Diego. This particular aircraft, a Navy MH-60 Seahawk, was heading to North Island Naval Air Station, carrying a crew of 8 personnel whose lives depended entirely on the integrity of their equipment. Every bolt, every circuit, every piece of composite armor represented a sacred trust between the operators who risked their lives and the contractors who built their tools. It was a trust that had been violated too many times, but tonight, at least, these 8 souls flew with equipment that had been properly vetted, tested, and verified. Every flight was still a trust exercise, a leap of faith 30 feet above the Pacific, but now that faith had stronger foundations. "We should get some rest," Avery said, watching the helicopter disappear into the distance, its lights becoming indistinguishable from the stars beginning to emerge in the twilight sky. "Tomorrow starts early." Master Chief Brennan nodded, his weathered face showing the exhaustion they all felt after the day's revelations and confrontations. "Every tomorrow starts early in this fight," he replied, with the wisdom of someone who'd spent 3 decades rising before dawn, preparing for battles both seen and unseen. "But at least now we're fighting the right enemy." They parted ways in the parking lot, each driving to separate hotels scattered across the city for security purposes. The Brotherhood might be wounded, but wounded animals were often the most dangerous. Avery's rental sedan was followed by a black SUV containing FBI agents who had volunteered for the dangerous assignment of keeping her alive. These weren't just any agents. They were former military themselves, men and women who understood the gravity of protecting someone who'd exposed such deep corruption. They maintained perfect spacing, close enough to respond to threats, but far enough to avoid drawing attention, professional shadows guarding a truth warrior. In her room at a nondescript business hotel in Mission Valley, Avery finally allowed herself to decompress. She kicked off her boots, feeling the carpet beneath feet that had been standing on principle all day. The room was standard corporate anonymous, beige walls, generic artwork, a bed that would be neither comfortable nor uncomfortable, perfect for someone who needed to disappear into normalcy for a few hours. She pulled her father's notebook from her bag, its leather cover worn smooth by her constant handling over the past weeks. Opening it to the last page, which had remained blank throughout his life and her investigation, she uncapped a pen. The words flowed without conscious thought, as if her father's spirit was guiding her hand. "Mission continues. Prometheus down, Leviathan next. Your daughter carries the torch. Phoenix 2. She studied the words, seeing in them both an ending and a beginning. Phoenix 2, not a replacement for her father, but a continuation of his legacy. The torch had been passed through death and grief, investigation and justice, to burn even brighter in the next generation. She closed the notebook reverently and placed it in the room's safe, along with the hard drives containing evidence that would crack Leviathan wide open. The safe's digital lock engaged with a soft beep, securing secrets that could reshape the entire defense industry. Tomorrow would bring new battles against an enemy that had learned from Prometheus's mistakes. Leviathan would be more careful, more sophisticated, more ruthless. New enemies would emerge from boardrooms and black sites, armed with lawyers instead of rifles, wielding classification stamps like weapons. New challenges would test her team's resolve, their integrity, their commitment to truth over comfort. But tonight, for these few hours, she'd accomplished something remarkable. She'd honored her father's memory, not with words or monuments, but with actions that would protect future operators from preventable deaths. Somewhere tonight, a young SEAL would return from a mission because his radio worked when he needed it. A Ranger's parachute would deploy properly because the contractor couldn't cut corners. A Delta operator's body armor would stop the rounds it was rated for. Lives saved by truth told. The phone on the nightstand rang once more, the caller ID showing a military exchange she recognized. She almost didn't answer, exhausted beyond measure, but something made her pick up. She recognized the voice immediately. It was the young SEAL lieutenant who had saluted her at Coronado, the one who had said her father had saved his team in Helmand. "Ma'am, I wanted you to know." His voice crackled with the distinctive distortion of a satellite phone, calling from some classified location halfway around the world. "The new equipment saved my team tonight. We got hit hard during an extraction. The radios worked perfectly under heavy jamming. We could call for close air support when we needed it most. Body armor held against rounds, the old stuff wouldn't have stopped. Took 3 direct hits to the plate, ma'am. 3 hits that would have been 3 dead Americans with the old Flex Tech garbage." Avery gripped the phone tighter, emotion welling up from depths she'd kept sealed during the investigation. "How many made it back?" "All 6 of us came home because of what you did. 6 families won't be getting folded flags tomorrow. 6 kids still have their fathers. That's because of you, ma'am." "What we all did," she corrected, her voice thick with unshed tears. "Every whistleblower who risked everything, every veteran who spoke out, every person who chose truth over comfort." "Roger that, ma'am. Just wanted to say thank you, from all of us, from our wives, our kids, our parents, from the ones who'll come after us. You gave us back our trust. That's everything in our world." The line went dead with the abrupt finality of military communications, leaving Avery alone with tears she finally allowed to fall. Not tears of sadness or grief, but of validation so profound it shook her to her core. Every threat she'd faced, from Admiral Huxley's intimidation to the Brotherhood's assault on the safe house, every risk taken from exposing classified programs to challenging the entire defense establishment, every sacrifice made from her father's death to her mother's murder, disguised as heart failure, all of it had been worth it for that one call. 6 operators alive because she'd finished her father's work. 6 warriors who would make it home to tell their children bedtime stories, to kiss their spouses good morning, to grow old with honor intact. The number seemed small against the scope of the conspiracy, but each life represented a universe of possibilities, futures that wouldn't be cut short by deliberate equipment failures. She fell asleep still holding his challenge coin, the metal warm from her grip, its edges worn smooth by 20 years of her father's handling, and now hers. Her dreams weren't of the battles past, the confrontations, investigations, and revelations that had consumed recent weeks. Instead, she dreamed of the victories still to come, of future operators saved, of corruption exposed before it could metastasize, of a defense industry that actually defended those who defended America. In her dreams, her father stood watch over her sleep, not as a ghost or memory, but as a presence both protective and proud. She could feel his approval, not just for completing his investigation, but for transforming it into something larger, a movement, a reformation, a new kind of warfare where truth was the weapon and integrity the armor. In the dreamscape between consciousness and sleep, she heard words she'd waited 11 years to hear, whispered in her father's voice with its distinctive mix of military precision and paternal warmth. "Mission complete, sweetheart. Rest now. Tomorrow needs you strong." Dawn came quickly to Southern California, bringing with it the promise of new challenges, but soon she would face the mile-high air of Colorado and the shadow of Cheyenne Mountain, where Leviathan waited, in its classified depths like a dragon guarding stolen gold. The next battle would be harder, the enemy more prepared, the stakes even higher, but she would not face it alone. Phoenix's daughter was now armed with more than truth. She had legal authority, public support, and a team of warriors who'd chosen honor over easy silence. Master Chief Brennan, Lieutenant Commander Torres, Captain Williams, and dozens of others who'd stepped forward when stepping back would have been safer. Together, they had turned an individual investigation into an institutional reformation. The fight continued. It always would, as long as power could corrupt and money could motivate betrayal. But now, at least, it was a fair fight. The shadows had been illuminated, the silent warriors given voice, the victims given justice. And somewhere, in whatever plane existed beyond death, Petty Officer First Class Michael Lane, Phoenix, could finally rest knowing his mission was complete, and his daughter had become the warrior he'd always known she could be.
These stories end here, but the journey